Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Falcon Punchcast. As always, it is I, your host, Mr.FalconPunch, aka Shaheen, and with me, as always, is my lovely host, HAMAZA, aka Darth Messiah.
Hello, I am the kick hider to Shaheen's hick hider.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
So if you couldn't tell by that, we're talking about Tokusatsu today. Just all about Tokusatsu, the great special effects filmmaking from Japan, henshin superheroes, kaiju, rubber suit monsters, and explosions. We're just going to be talking all about Tokusatsu, our personal histories with it, what we love about it, and just some of our favorite franchises, series, and movies from it, as well as what we feel is the future of Tokusatsu, even though we really don't have that much stakes into it. But we'll just talk about what we
have
feel.
stakes as fans. That counts.
I mean, maybe stakes wasn't the right word, but we don't really have a footing in there. We don't really speak Japanese. We're not in that production
we're
end of it.
We're not influencers. We're not Toku influencers.
Yes, we could only merely speculate at what the world of Tokusatsu will be like going forward in the future. It does seem bright. At least for one of the companies, but we'll get into that later. But for now, we'll start off with our personal histories. I will start off because HAMAZA's personal history of Tokusatsu involves me, so we might as well, for the sake of clarity, just start off with me. But with my Tokusatsu introductions, obviously as a kid, there was Power Rangers, which I watched. It wasn't super big for me because I was more into Digimon and Pokemon, but I did enjoy Power Rangers as a kid, but obviously I didn't know it was Tokusatsu. I didn't know it had a Japanese connection at all. Years down the line, as I'm getting more and more into anime and manga, and I'm just digging in the dirt, finding all the classics. I found Go Nagai. I'm like, this guy is awesome and fucked up. Give me more like this. And then as I was reaching Go Nagai, I found out he was assistant to this guy named Shotaro Ishinomori. I'm like, okay, and then come across his works. And, there's Cyborg 009, which is the first, superhero team of Japan. And then Kamen Rider. I'm like, this bug fella looks interesting. So I read the manga. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I start researching more into Kamen Rider. A little light goes off in the back of my head. Because technically, in a really weird way, I've encountered Kamen Rider before. You see, there's this horror manga series called Frankenfran. And basically the whole very short summary of that series, there's this doctor lady that's fucked up, and you go to her and she's like a monkey's paw blackjack. You go up to her, she'll do some surgery on you that you want, and it turns out way different than you wanted. There's an ongoing storyline of a bunch of people coming up to her to essentially be turned into Kamen Riders. So the concept of a person turning into a superhuman cyborg through surgery through an evil force was familiar to me, especially a bug themed one. So once I started diving more in depth with Kamen Rider, I'm like, wait, I've come across that before. But obviously I've always had a huge love with superheroes and practical effects. So Kamen Rider, and then by extension Tokusatsu as a whole, just seemed like something I should have been into years ago. And I was so happy I came across it. I was obsessed. I wanted to watch everything. I wanted to absorb every piece of information I could about it. It was a whole new world for me. Start watching a bunch of episodes ones of various series of Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Ultraman. And then my love kept on blossoming to eventually I got to the point of making some YouTube videos about it. And then of course doing introduction videos coming from someone that is more of a newcomer as myself. Well, more of a newcomer back then. Now I'm a little bit more seasoned. But it's just been great because everything I like is in Tokusatsu. Again, you got the practical effects, which I've always loved. I'm a huge simp for practical effects. You got superheroes, which I will always love. Superhero fatigue doesn't really exist for me. Just MCU, DCU, they've kind of, not outstayed their welcome, but they're not as fresh as they used to be, especially after Endgame. But I am still hopeful for not so much the MCU, especially with some announcements that have come out in recent years. or not recent years, recent weeks.
I mean,
Really.
this is a bit of a tangent, but for me, it's more so that like ever since I've gotten into the comics, I just don't care about the movies anymore, since the comics just provide so much more for me. So it's like, well, I mean, this is giving me 10x, what I want, whereas the movies, it's like not really that much. Both Marvel and DC, I'm not like, I'm not putting one on the pedestal over the other, but like that's how it's been for me. Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, that too. So Tokusatsu, and like, especially when I was getting into Tokusatsu, superheroes were kind of in that like dark and gritty era, kind of.
Right.
Yeah, like the Zack Snyder, and then Marvel kind of teasing you with like a darker storyline, but then not really delivering because it's Marvel. And then, of course, comics wise, I mean, I wasn't really into it back then, but like the only comic you could hear people talking about was like Injustice. So meanwhile, I go to Tokusatsu, I get really cool costumes. The superheroes are all about like humanity. Fuck yeah, let's help each other out, man. It's no longer what would Jesus do. It's what would Kamen Rider do? What would Ultraman do?
What would Gaim do?
What would Fruity Jesus do?
I genuinely thought you were going to say that. For those who don't know, there's a Toku show, Kamen Rider Gaim, where it's literally about like if someone ate like this like apple, they would have the powers of a god. So everyone's like, "Oh, it's fruit Jesus."
Also, fun fact, because I know a lot of you guys are anime fans, that series is penned by Urabuchi.
Yeah, again, motherfucking Urabuchi.
Yeah. So he did a Kamen Rider. He also did a Godzilla anime, but I didn't really like those movies.
Same. I didn't like Singular Point either. But anyways, I guess we'll talk about B now.
Singular Point he didn't do, but just so we don't get a comment. He did the Netflix anime movie trilogy.
Oh, those the three weird like CGI movies, right? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, again, I just saw Power Rangers as a kid. I was in the Dino Thunder Ninja Storm like era of Power Rangers. I think they were like back-to-back seasons, and I enjoyed those. But again, I as a kid, but I never really thought about them again. And like Godzilla, I didn't even know was Toku. I thought it was just a giant monster movie. Yay! But then I met Shaheen in uni, and he's talking about Tokusatsu, and I make what I think what every person new to Toku makes. It's just Japanese Power Rangers, which is a very ironic sentence, knowing what I know now about Sentai, where it's like, oh, it's actually the other way around.
It's also funny because right now on Twitter, there's a lot of discourse surrounding that statement. Because someone on Twitter posted a picture of a Sentai clip, and they were like, "Wow, Japanese Power Rangers goes hard."
I saw those.
Yeah, and it became the hugest thing on Twitter.
Yeah. So like, it's actually like Power Rangers is just American Sentai. That's more the more accurate statement. So I ignored it. I didn't really care for it. But then like hearing Shaheen talk about it more and like actually looking at his videos, like I think your introductions to like Toku in general, and then like your specific like Kamen Rider and Sentai, I'm like, you know what, this looks interesting. Let me at least Kamen Rider at least look interesting. I ignored Sentai and I ignored Ultraman because like I couldn't get on board with like the rubber suit kaiju monsters. I couldn't get on board. Well, I mean, Sentai just found it as similar to Power Rangers, and then I'm like, I don't want a Power Rangers. I want to get away from that. So Kamen Rider was the only one that looked unique to me. So I'm like, you know what? Let me try Kamen Rider. And I think Build was coming out at the time. So I watched Build. Well, actually, before that, I watched the two shorts. Kamen Rider, I think J, was it?
Oh, yeah, Zeo and J.
Yeah, Zeo and J. Zeo was the one where it's like organic, right? It has that one cool tracking shot with like the fight scene.
Right, yeah, that's the one with like that really cool monster and has like a stop motion scene in it too.
Okay, and then J is the one where he becomes big, right?
Yeah, because he's Jumbo or something like that.
Yeah, so I saw Zeo and J and I enjoyed those movies. Zeo much more than J.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, let me get to an actual Kamen Rider show. So I saw Build, and I immediately fell in love with it. I loved the craziness of it. I loved that it like went full on hardcore into like the silliness. Because like again, like my experience with I guess like Toku esque superhero shows were like the CW. So like your Flash, Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow. I didn't see it, but like Smallville back in the day.
Oh yeah, Supergirl. I remember watching that one
Oh yeah,
firsthand.
Supergirl, yeah. And so like that's what I expected. And one thing that bothered me was that it never goes full superhero. It's like a drama show that happens to have superheroes in it, which I know like people say like comic books are just soap opera. I'm like, yes, that is true, but it's like, there is like it's more of an action story than like a drama show. Whereas with the CW show I felt the opposite. For like, oh, this is just a drama show, but like once in a while we just throw in like superhero stuff. It didn't feel like it was fully embracing it. So Kamen Rider was like a breath of fresh air. We're like, no, we're a superhero action story first, and then like we're going to use drama just to enhance that. And like so, seeing him like the henshin sequence, the sounds, like the jingles that happen when he uses the belt, the fact that his rider kick is him going down a graph because he's a scientist. And then like the whole scene where he's like going up the wall on his motorcycle. Like, granted, yeah, it's CGI when that happens, but it's like it works. And I was like, I get it now. I get what Shaheen was saying. Granted, I was still like a Kamen Rider like dick sucker at this point.
Yeah, it took you a while to get out of that phase.
Yeah, so like I never looked back since then. I tried to get other people in, but no. Like I tried showing that scene of Build to other people, and they're like, "No, this looks bad. This looks like cheap and stuff." I'm like, "Yes, it is on a budget. Cheap is the wrong, but I would say yes, it's on budget, but it's like, they're like, man, are they utilizing it to the fullest?" And they're like really like making lemons out of lemonade. Sorry, making lemonade out of lemons. This is backwards. Yeah. Uh, yeah. So I've never looked back since, and then I've expanded. Like before, I was like just a Kamen Rider purist, but then I looked into Ultraman. I eventually got to Sentai, and like yeah, then eventually got to Garo. I yeah, like I just want like I'm full in on the Toku train, and like I honestly can't go back to like the CW version of like superhero shows. I can't. Like it's like unwatchable to me. Which is funny because like a lot of the people who are watching CW are like, "Oh, Smallville's unwatchable to me now," or I'm like 2-3 degrees removed from that.
And it was just funny because I remember I tried getting one of our friends who was watching CW into like Toku, and they're like, "Nah." I'm like, "Enjoy your inferior product, noob."
So yeah, so that's my history, and I don't know, like I. It's funny because like Shaheen got me into Toku, and I was at least able to like get back, and like we're even now because I got him into comics. So we're one for
Right.
one now. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're waiting for the next big thing to get each other into.
Oh, I don't think that there can. I mean, I'm into sports, so like I guess I can just get you into sports now. Like, come play pickleball or table tennis with me, Shaheen.
And I could get you into cooking, so you can actually watch cooking anime and manga.
Food's just food, man. Stuff
I
you
get
put
you
in your
into food.
mouth.
Listen, man, it's about haven't you seen Ratatouille?
Yeah, but it's like it's like my least favorite Pixar movie. I put Cars above that.
No, HAMAZA. No, I think that's like the second worst thing you've told me all week.
Like genuinely, if you're like, okay, you get to watch Ratatouille or you're gonna watch Cars, I'm like, I'm picking Cars. Like,
Oh my god, hell no! I would watch Ratatouille on repeat over like ever seeing another second of Cars. Fucking
like
eight
that's how
Cars.
much like food things like disinterest me.
Damn.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, gotta, somehow got to continue on from that. But like, so we talked about our history. So now we're going to get into what we like about Tokusatsu as a medium. Obviously, when I was talking about my history, I've always had a big love and appreciation for special effects, which of course Tokusatsu, it's kind of like the bread and butter. That's what gets us all interested and hyped for it. Because the thing with practical effects, no matter how cheesy they are, it's tangible, it's real. You know, you could touch it, the actors could touch it. And then when it's done well, it's, I believe I got this from Accented Cinema, which is a great YouTube channel for mostly Asian movie analysis. But he even did a whole video on practical effects, and he's like, when practical effects are done right, it's like a magic trick. Like, CG's great and everything, but at the end of the day, you know how they do CG. It's a guy who's pretty talented, mind you, just doing things on a computer and, you know, making a background or monster or whatever. But when it's practical, you know, you have a whole team behind that. You know, you got a guy in a suit, you probably got some other guy trying to move the tail or something. You have to like time all the like explosions and buildings and all that. It's a whole system that has to go into play with that, which, not to say that doesn't happen with CG, but the fact that they're doing this practically and like it all has to be timed just right to make it, you know, somewhat believable. And to me personally, I've even seen some like Showa era Toku, and just, it's a mixture of a lot of Toku just committing to the bit. Like, yeah, it could be silly. You know, you'll have your main hero fighting against like a monster that essentially has a toilet for a head or something like that. And like the heroes might make fun of the monster, but it's not like current superhero things where it's like, oh, your name's Doc Ock. Isn't that fucking stupid? What are you, dumbass? You know, it's just like, they'll sometimes be like, oh, you suck. But they still take it as a serious threat. Like, there's a fine balance of Tokusatsu where like it takes itself seriously, but not too seriously. Like, it understands it's a goofy superhero show for kids, but it's not going to shit on, you know, the viewer for enjoying it, you know? Which I also, which especially when I was getting into Tokusatsu, I'm like, yes, it's a superhero show that loves being a superhero show. And it's not just trying to be like, yeah, I'm a superhero, but I'm really a drama.
Yeah, so that's like a lot of similar things for me. One thing I would say that on the like practical versus CGI thing, CGI keeps on improving. You know, like eventually, although Jurassic Park has done a pretty good job of somehow like still looking good, but like a lot of CGI, like give it a few years, it looks outdated. Like the best CGI, as people say, like is the CGI you don't notice, which is like kind of like thankless to the like oh, it's the one I don't know that you did it.
That's cool with practical effects. Like, you know it's there.
Yeah. With practical effects, you know it's there, and also it's like it, if done right, it could stand the test of time. Like it will always outlive because it'll always look real no matter what. CGI, like maybe it looks real for the moment, or maybe it doesn't. But like, given it a few years' time, chances are it won't look as real or as good anymore because technology has just like again it constantly improves and keeps on going forward. So yeah, and then like when it comes to like I said before, like it embraces being a superhero show again, like to various levels. Some of them do take themselves seriously, some of them don't, but like they do full on embrace. They have no shame about like being like yeah, we're a costume action show first. Everything else is just to enhance that drama aspect, not like replace it. And then one thing I also love, like I like that it's more or less built into the genre. Like I haven't seen like a very cynical toku yet. Like I can't really think of one. Uh, and it's it's just it's built into the values of like having good messaging in it. Like obviously you've got like the classic stuff, like friendship, honesty, helping humanity, being a better person, improving. But you also have like like even with something like Garo, which is like made for adults, and it's like it takes things a lot more seriously and it's a bit more edgy. But even then, it still doesn't shy away from like having good messages about like making connections and like being a good person and growing and like like how to like get out of tough situations. Like it still doesn't shy away from that, which is something I was like very surprised by. Like, whoa, wow, it's still like it doesn't go full edgelord into like nothing matters, everything sucks. Like, no, it does not do that, which is like surprisingly mature of Garo, which is like,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that's what I appreciate about Garo, because like when I was getting into it, like Garo was advertised as like it's the edgy kid on the block. You know, this ain't your grandpappy's common rider. You know, this is Garo. And then I'm like
Yeah.
watching it. I'm like, yeah, there's a little bit of blood and occasionally some nudity, but for the most part, it's just another Tokusatsu show, like in a good way. Like,
yeah.
like it's you know, it's not that grimdark. The blood's not that like over the top, even though I kind of wish it was that over the top. But you know, it's not that bad until like you get to the final boss of a season where it's just a giant naked lady.
Yeah.
But
Also, what you're saying, which then, like, speaking of the filmmaking, like, so yes, like Toku for the most part. I mean, I don't. This doesn't apply to movies, but like most, like a majority of Toku is on TV, so it has like clearly like a TV show budget, but like we're talking like a modest TV show. We're not talking Game of Thrones like money. Uh, but like, and you can like tell at times like the shortcuts they're using or the film techniques they're doing. Like Super Sentai has it like on a pretty much formulaic basis. Like when like clearly they're using two different shots, like the flip shot or like when they jump up with their boots. Or like some ways they do action. Like it is, they're using formulaic shots like they've done over the years, but it's still like it feels like attainable somehow. Like if me and Shaheen were to get like just enough money together, we could make our own Toku. Like yes, it's on a budget, it's not super high scale, but like they use that to like I would say near perfection. Like we don't have a lot, we know exactly what to do with what we have, and we're going to make it the best looking possible. And honestly, sometimes Toku looks better than even like $1 million like production. Like
yeah, like honestly, like the speed in Kabuto and the magic in Kamen Rider Wizard, honestly, sometimes look better than the modern day superhero movies that we have from like the MCU and DCU or whatever the abbreviation for the
dude,
DC
I
side.
got a bigger high from the Ultraman Rube movie than I think even Avengers Endgame. Surprisingly, like I was like after that movie, I was like, holy crap! This is like I enjoyed the hell out of the movie. It's genuinely one of my favorite, I would say, movies. Definitely one of my favorite Toku movies, but like I would say even favorite movies in general. The Ultraman Rube movie was like that good. Like I don't know, the build up to it, the action scenes, the villain Trigger, like all of it. Like, and that's why I'm saying, like, like I mean, obviously you've got like the suits. Like, I don't think any superhero show or possibly even movies. I'm not sure. I'll have to think about that. But like, man, if there's one thing Toku knows how to do is to make a cool ass superhero suit. They're not all winners. Some of them are busts.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but like more often than not, they're like, this is how you make a superhero suit.
I mean, Toku has like one of the greatest, not even just superheroes. It's just like one of the greatest designs ever.
Yeah.
With
I mean, I was watching because I'm watching Time Ranger Sentai right now, and like a thought just occurred to me, like the monster of the week have like really really good like monster designs, not just for Time Ranger, but like a good chunk of like monster of the week type shows, like your Sentais, your Kamen Riders, your Ultramans. Well, Ultraman does reuse quite a bit, but like Sentai and Kamen Rider, I think like never do. So it's like crazy to me. Like these suits are just for like a one-time thing, and you never see them again. Like it's like crazy to me, and like how much effort is put into like a monster of the week like suit.
Yeah, I mean exactly. And then going back to what I was saying a bit before, but like one of the best character designs ever is mainly starred in Tokusatsu, which is Hakaider.
Right.
10 out of 10, just no notes, perfect design. The old school design, fantastic. The reboot design, amazing. Mechanical Violator Hakaider design, let me come in that shit.
So there's 3 versions. Okay, I've only seen the Mechanical Violator one.
Yeah, you have the old school version.
You have the reboot as well. Yeah, the reboot. Yeah,
which is also really cool. And then and the anime looks great. Yeah. Character designs are based on Hakaider. are also fantastic. You know, you got Top Gunner and Metalder. You got like Biohunter Silva, also great. You can't go wrong with that design. Just like evil black cyborg kills it. Love that shit. But or not cyborg, but like more like android. But yeah, just, you know, you got the great designs, you got the earnesty,
yeah,
know,
that's
all the
the perfect word for
choreography.
it. Like it's earnest, it's genuine, it's non-cynical, it's like it's not afraid to be cheesy, it's not afraid to be corny, because it's like, because if we're being honest, like a lot of like good messages like friendship, honesty, being better, being good human being, being kind, like they are cheesy at the end of the day, especially when you say them out loud. But like, you know, but I'm so like, it's so not afraid to be that, and it's like, I think it shows that like yes, these are technically franchises for kids, but like the fact that they do those like 20-year, 30-year, 40-year specials, uh, decades later, shows that like there's a lasting like adult audience that have fond memories of it. Yeah,
Exactly. And there's like conventions, like there's like an Ultraman convention they have every year that like, you know, families go to. Like, can you
yeah,
imagine that? You just have like generations of fans coming in every year for like this superhero show. Like, that's crazy. Like, this specific superhero, you know, you got grandpas, you got dads, you got, you know, sons and daughters into this shit. Like, it's
yeah.
crazy. Which I love about it. Because like, again, going back to the cynicism thing, because like at the end of the day, a lot of tokusatsu is trying to sell you on toys or, you know, something.
Yeah.
You know, capitalism's, you know, it's a part. It has its grips in tokusatsu, and you know, sometimes in a toku show, you know, they'll pull up a weapon that they'll probably use like once or twice, and it's like, here's a brand new toy, kids. But I don't really like. I see some people like complain about it, but I don't feel it's like as in your face compared to like, and I don't mean to keep on like bragging on Marvel. You know, the MCU was a big part of my childhood, and I still have interest in it. But you know, it's not like, you know, Marvel where it's like, here's a whole movie essentially for cameos, or here's a whole movie just to set up another movie and a TV show that you're probably not going to watch. You know, at least
Yeah,
with Toku,
so
it's just like, buy this fucking toy and then maybe eat the sausage or fruit jelly snack.
so for me, if you didn't tell me that, so it's like there's a divide between, I would say, like old school Toku fans and like I would say more modern Toku fans, because more modern Toku fans have been exposed to like the toy stuff way more. Uh, but like old school fans, it's still kind of like new to them because they it wasn't a part of old school Toku apparently. Although I would argue it was, like, at least, you know, I've gone back as far as I think like 90s, 80s, like toys still pretty much look like part of it. Maybe a bit more now, but still. Like I've unless you told me that, I would have never noticed, to be honest. That they're like, oh, they're really heavily leaning into the toys. I always feel like they integrate the toys pretty much always well. Like it's obvious. It's not like, you know, it's not like, it never feels like a genuine story moment, but it's like, I mean, if you have to, like, this is just part of the thing that, you know, makes money for them, because apparently the toys are the things that are funding these shows. You know, I don't mind it. And it's like, long as it's incorporated well, like, okay, you got a new toy. Okay, how will it fit in the story? If, as long as you can make it fit in well, or like one particular order, ignore it completely. Just shows up like, yeah, you got a new toy now. Back to actual storytelling.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, maybe because most of those toys are either out of reach or like the import cost of them would be like way too expensive to even
Also, you're like a
justify.
grown ass man, dude.
Well, see, the thing is with Toku, they also do make, like, I'm assuming they're toys for adults, because if you look at the prices of some of like the fig arts or like premium Bandai belts or something like that, I'm like, a kid cannot afford that.
True. True.
Like, I
Yeah.
don't know what kid is affording like a premium Bandai like belt set. Like that ain't happening. Like, so, no, they definitely know that adults also want these toys, because, you know, at the end of the day, toys are kind of cool, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm more of a figure person. I like a non moving joint figure. You know, I'm a little bit more refined with my taste.
Yeah, you like a statue, essentially.
Yeah, like a statue or a bust.
Yeah.
Because it's more of a conversation piece. And now they can't say, oh, it's like you're playing with your little dolls. I'm like, well, listen, first of all, it's not a doll.
It's a display piece.
It's a display piece. It's a conversation piece. Like, yo, look at that. That's Kamen Rider. Do you know how fucking cool he is? He's a bug man on a motorcycle.
Speaking of that, like, I had, like, retroactive, like, weird, like, emotions now that I discovered Toku, because I'm, like, all these references came flooding back to me all at once. So, like, literally, I go to Shaheen, like, hey, Shaheen, in One Punch Man, there's a character called Moomin Rider. Is he, and you're like, yes. And then you've got, like, the Ginyu Force in Dragon Ball Z. I'm like, oh my god, this is a Sentai. Sailor Moon, obviously a Sentai. Sentai inspired, at least. And then I'm trying to think what there has to be. Oh, Justimon in Digimon, clearly, like,
there's tons of Pokemon that are like kaiju references, or like the fact that like bug types are strong against dark types is Kamen Rider.
So yeah, like it's just weird. It's kind of like after you see JoJo, like now you understand all the references and memes. After like watching Toku, like, oh, it's like so built into the foundation of anime. It's like surprising to me that more people don't like notice or like go like.
If you're an anime fan or like a fan of early 90s cartoons for some reason, chances are, without you even knowing, you've come across like handfuls of Toku references, whether it be like a rider kick. You know, they even do the rider kick in the fucking Mario movie. You know, the Ultraman sound effects, you know, the swah, you know,
yes,
or like the Ultraman like beam pose. You've come across this like thousands of times and it probably didn't even register in your head. But like Tokusatsu has a really huge prevalence in like a lot of Japanese pop culture. Well, I mean, it makes sense, you know, over here in America, you know, a lot of superheroes have their prevalence in our pop culture too, so it makes sense. But
yeah, but maybe like the fact that like the first superhero team, not a Toku technically, but it came from the same like brain as the guy who created like a good foundation of Toku. You know, Shitaru Ishinomori with Cyborg 009. The same guy created Kamen Rider, Metalder. Not Metalder, sorry. No, was it?
Kikaider.
Kikaider, yeah, Kikaider. I mean, Metalder's like, you know...
Oh, Metalder's inspired by Kikaider, which was created by
and
Ishinomori.
then obviously, you know, Super Sentai, which then became Power Rangers in America. So, like, yeah, it's like, they're so interlinked, but it's like, unfortunately, to most fans, they don't see the chain link, unfortunately.
Yeah, because like if you're an anime fan, like I feel like you should give Toku a chance. Not only are like both histories like very entwined, but like because I know there's a lot of anime fans that are like they kind of just follow voice actors they really like, but there's a lot of voice actors that have popped up into Tokusatsu and have like, you know, some of them even have big roles, but others, you know, they voice like a villain or a side character or something. You know, you got like writers and directors.
I think like slowly anime fans are, because you've got like the Gridman universe, and then you've got like the SSS Gridman like anime. Then you've got like right now Gogu Loser Ranger, which is clearly very Sentai inspired. You also have that one where it's like Love After World Domination or something like that one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's always like a Toku anime.
I mean, I literally sometimes, because there is a Kamen Rider double anime.
Right. I mean, now Toku's becoming a little bit more popular, and we'll talk about that in a bit when we talk about like the future of the Toku, because I feel like not to sound like main characters, but ever since we got into Tokusatsu, it seems like it's been it's been doing pretty well for itself lately.
Yeah, we liked it before it was cool.
Yeah, you know. Before the American stuff. Okay, real quick, because there's a lot of people I see online that's like, quick, we got to start gatekeeping Tokusatsu before the normies get in. Don't do that. Just like stop it.
and see that impulse comes from that perception that like Hollywood will get their like hands in it and they'll fuck around with it and it'll like ruin it. Which I'm like, I think Hollywood already has gotten his hands in it. I mean, the fact that Power Rangers exists and like they tried, make that a movie, and like I think it's already happening. And like also, like, yeah, like don't like whoever wants to join can join. Like you know, if it
especially
looks
with like companies like Subaraya, like for years
has been
wanting to
trying.
been trying to get into the American market, and now finally, thanks to like finally getting out of this this legal battle that was keeping them from properly getting into America, now that they're free from that and they're like just going crazy, putting everything on a streaming service, giving us DVDs, movies, animes, all that, spoiling us, comic book crossovers, all of that. Don't like belittle their efforts and try to get people not to get into Tokusatsu. Just like, yeah, no, stay away from Ultraman. No one wants you there. And it's like, are you kidding? You want to like, after all Tsuraya done, you don't want to reward those efforts with more people getting involved? Because like some of these people, they're like, yeah, don't get into Tokusatsu. I'm like, all right, do you have all the Mill Creek DVDs? Have you supported Tsuburaya lately? Or are you still like on fan subs?
Yeah, like like the more listen, Toku has like always been like an on budget like kind of like system. So it's like the more money we can put in, the more product we get, the more stuff we get, and like we can actually show like two Japanese like businessmen and executives that like, hey, there is a market for this in America. Like, please give us more. Because right now, like Subaraya, yes, is putting in an effort, but then Toei's being very weird and dodgy with like Super Sentai and Kamen Rider. I don't know why. Garo is struggling, but I hope they bounce back and to gain a foothold like in North America. Yeah.
Yes, that's why I'm hoping, like in a perfect world, all of the Toku releases will, get English streams just like whatever they're doing with Subaraya. Because with Subaraya right now, with Ultraman, we pretty much have every season and movie. They either have DVDs or if you're in a country that has the service, Tubi practically has all the Ultraman seasons and movies. You have
A
Netflix
good chunk
Ultraman.
of Super Sentai like seasons.
We say a good chunk. It's probably like 5 shows.
I mean, better than most.
Better than most, but it's like 5 shows out of like 45. It's like, Then with Kamen Rider, it's like we have like 3 or 4 up on a streaming service, but then we got a couple more that are getting DVD releases like Black RX, and V3. And then we're also getting some Metal Heroes. Like I think we have all the Space Sheriffs are either out on DVD or they're coming out on DVD or Blu-ray.
They were on Crunchyroll as well, I think, for a while.
Just Beyond was on Crunchyroll for a bit, but I had it bookmarked and now it's gone. So
it's gone. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of wish, because like it's weird because all these streaming service and who owns what, and it gets pretty frustrating and annoying. But I'm like, Toei has a somewhat good relationship with Crunchyroll.
Yeah.
So I'm like, can't you guys just like, I don't know, slide a deal, be like, here's our Toku? I mean, Crunchyroll has done Toku, like early new generation's hero shows for Ultraman were on Crunchyroll. I think up until Geed, it was on Crunchyroll, and then that went away. The Kamen Rider double anime is on Crunchyroll. But we don't have the original Kamen Rider double series. That's not on the DVD. Instead, it's like, oh, what's the next Kamen Rider announcement we're going to get in America? Toei? And it's like, Geets. I'm like, that's good for Geets. But like, why?
Yeah, and I think like this was way before. I don't know if it's still like one of the earliest like official English translations was for like Kamen Rider Heisei Final Generations, which is like basically think of it as like Kamen Rider's endgame for the Heisei era of Kamen Rider, and it's like, why are you like? It'd be like if Marvel's like, we're gonna make Endgame first. It's like, why? Why are you giving us that? Why are you giving us the end of this like long line of shows you had?
Exactly. No one's gonna have
Yeah.
context for anything. It's like, why is the Bug Man next to the pink gamer boy? Like, what? Who are these people? But yeah, so that's why we love Toku as a medium. But now we'll like switch on over to our favorite franchises and shows in the medium of Toku. With me, with franchises, it's weird because in the beginning, like Hamza, I was very Kamen Rider focused, which is weird because I also had a history of Godzilla. I kind of forgot to mention that as part of my Tokusatsu history. But then again, we talked about our Godzilla history in a previous podcast, so you could check that
True.
out where we go more in depth with Godzilla. Godzilla
Sorry
is
for
a
the
part of
mic
Tokusatsu.
on that one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I also had some mic problems too because I was like rustling around my mic at the time. So yeah, we both had mic issues in that podcast. But we're getting back into the swing of things. It was like our second podcast back from our hiatus. But anyways, so yeah, I was more into Kamen Rider. I just thought the suits looked cool. You know, a superhero on a motorcycle. That's just, you can't beat that. That's always a cool thing. So I was into Kamen Rider for a bit. Then I started opening my heart more towards Ultraman because of Ultraman G, which really got me into Ultraman because I love that show. Then I was getting more into Sentai, and then there's Garo. And then I need to explore more of Metal Heroes because I love how diverse it is.
Same, yeah. Like, for me, Metal Heroes is a bit of a... I haven't had the best introductions to it because, like, I tried the first Space Sheriff. It at the time was way too old school for me. Like, I've just found so many like filmmaking problems with it. But now that I think I've like changed, so I can go back and maybe I can appreciate it more. And then was that Jan person? I know you like it because it's just like a RoboCop show that like he's just mowing down everybody. I found it boring because of that. Like whatever was a positive for you was a negative for me. It's like he's just like it's an unstoppable machine, just like killing everybody. Like
But
it's
it's
like
cool.
it's like nothing's happening. Like no one's giving up a challenge. Like it was like found it really like after like 5 episodes, I was like, okay, I'm like done. Can something different happen? So
Well, yeah, but like, see, instead of blowing someone away with his gun, he summons his motorcycle that turns into a jet to fucking mow them down.
so like that was my problem. But like there are others like I know the English name Beetleborgs. I forgot what the Japanese.
Oh yeah, Bee Fighter.
Yeah, Bee Fighter, and then there's a Blue SWAT, which looks like really interesting because it's just like people in armor. It's not even like suits.
Yeah, see, with Metal Heroes, it's all fully subbed. When I was getting into Metal Heroes, like
That
a
was
lot of
another
them were
problem.
barely getting
Yeah,
subtitled, but now they're all complete, I think.
yeah.
Except maybe Robotech, but that one's not even officially
Technically
considered a
Yeah.
Metal Hero anymore. So
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, so like with my favorite franchise, it will definitely still have to be Kamen Rider, even if Kamen Rider hasn't really connected with me because I've been watching it ongoing since Build. But honestly, since Build, there hasn't been a Kamen Rider series I really connected with. Whereas with Ultraman and Sentai, there's been plenty of seasons since I got into Tokusatsu that I really enjoyed. I mean, I guess with Kamen Rider, the closest was maybe 01.
Yeah.
But then after episode 20, things started falling apart. And then as AI has advanced, I have very complicated feelings on that show.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Kamen Rider 01, it tackled like so every same thing like you've seen Power Rangers. Every new Power Rangers has a theme, like dinosaurs, ninjas. Usually it's animals. Like that's the most common one. And so Kamen Rider is the same thing, but it's like they have like very different concepts. So this one was AI. It was all going to be about AI and robots and all of those. And it's like it has some very weird and strange takes that, yes, in hindsight, do not. Granted, it was made in 2020. No one was really, at least in the mainstream, was talking about AI then. So I don't blame the writers. But like, yeah, post now that we live in the like, oh, AI is a main thing that could like change the world and like everybody's talking about it. Like, yeah, it's like It does not age well, like, very quickly.
Yeah. And then also, like, it's like
Mhm.
a show that kind of tries making like these AI people like a race allegory, and then as the more and more that show goes on, it's like that just does not work. Like, what are we
Yeah.
trying to say here? Yeah. But great action, great suits. I think when
Yep.
01 came out, I watched like the transformations of that show probably like 100 times on YouTube.
The engines. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
all those henshins, I was like obsessed, especially Kamen Rider Vulcan,
Mm.
because when he transforms, he has to punch a bullet to it was like the coolest thing ever. I mean, I have a Kamen Rider 01 and Vulcan figure, and they're like the biggest figures I have in my collection, and they stare at me all the time, so it's always on my mind. But yeah, it's technically not the best show. But you know, if it's your first Kamen Rider, it looks interesting to you, and you enjoy it, more power to you.
Yeah.
I think it still is a really cool show with great action and costumes. But in terms of what is my favorite show, because Kamen Rider may be my favorite franchise, but my favorite shows from Toku are a bit split. It's a two-way split between two. One of them actually is a Kamen Rider series, which is Kamen Rider Kuga, the GOAT. Probably just one of my favorite pieces of superhero fiction ever. I love that show. I watched it for the first time 3 years ago, and I'm regretting not watching it earlier. But just everything I love about superheroes is in that show. Yusuke Godai is probably one of the best Kamen Rider protagonists. I cried multiple times in that show. I love the theme song. You know, no fear, no pain, and then tons of great shots. Love the supporting cast. I just like that it was a Kamen Rider show. It was also like a police procedural. I also miss when Kamen Rider monsters like actually killed and fucked up people and were scary. That doesn't really happen anymore. Because like in like Kuga, and I'm also currently watching Agito. Like these monsters like kill people and leave the evidence behind. There's like, I want you to see that I just murdered someone, and I will do it in front of kids. Like in Agito, there's an episode where like this monster is just like throwing people off buildings, and they did it in a park. And so you just essentially see someone fall down to their death, and you see like kids playing in their playground, and they're looking around, and then everyone's just shocked, like, "Oh my god, what just happened?" And then this cobra monster pops out of nowhere. It's like, I'm gonna like fuck you all up. I'm like, peak. They don't make them like that anymore. But then sharing the spotlight with Kuga, and it's a show that I am constantly holding myself back from rewatching because there's just so much I need to watch. But it is Ultraman Geed. It is the show that got me into Ultraman. The summer Ultraman Geed came out, my mind was full of Ultraman. Like that show was so good, it made me a simp for the entire franchise. Like after every episode, I'm like, oh my god, what is the Land of Light? What is Ultraman lore? Who are these Ultramen? Oh, they're connected, but not really, but kind of, but yeah. And then like start getting so into it. I'm like, oh my god, and like the Showa generation, the Heisei, and New Generation. Oh my goodness. And then Gene is just a great show. I love Ultraman Zero. I mean, he doesn't really have a show to himself, but Ultraman Zero is great. He is essentially the Shonen protagonist Ultraman.
He has movies to himself. So.
Yes, he has movies. They're all great. And also, the voice actor for Ultraman Zero is currently Kinnikuman. So that's a special treat for me. That's great to hear, even though currently on the Netflix Kinnikuman show, Kinnikuman hasn't done much himself. We're focusing on a lot of the other characters, but that's how this arc is playing out. But I'm looking forward to hearing more of his performance as Kinnikuman. But Geed's great. I think that was also your first Ultraman, right?
Yes, because like I got into Ultraman from you, so I'm like, hey, where do I start? And so you were like, hey, just go with Geed. Geed is like pretty fine. But like, as I did more research into Geed, I figured out that like, oh, there's these like set of Zero movies that are like technically a prequel. Because that's
and
where
even
like
before those movies, there's a 2-season show like Mega Monster Battle Galaxy.
Yeah, Mega Monster Bash. I think I saw a few episodes of Mega Monster Bash.
Same here. I need to go back. I want to get the whole Zero story, so I need to go back, watch those shows, and then experience everything Zero.
Yeah. So I watched the Zero movies loved them. Like absolutely, like it's like the action in that, the martial arts in that is like crazy.
Oh, but yeah, I would
Ultraman.
love like a movie, like more movies like that. It's just because you're on the Ultraman planet, so everyone's an Ultra. It's just
Yeah.
Ultras. I'm like, fuck yes.
Yeah, no, trust me. When you're watching Ultraman, if there's an Ultraman versus Ultraman fight, get ready because like it's gonna be amazing. So yeah, I saw the Zero movies. Then I saw Geed and loved it, which is kind of messed me up for the rest of the new generation Ultra because most of them are not that great. Like you've got uh, no, I think my first was Ultraman Taiga. I think if I remember correctly.
Oh,
Yeah, I think my first was Ultraman Taiga, and I didn't really have a like uh what do you call it? Like any sort of like thoughts on it. I just like took it as it is. But then yeah, like I think I saw Jeet after maybe. I'm not sure. But like yeah. Like Ginga and Ginga S were not that great. X Orb were okay. I didn't really find them like super compelling. In fact with Orb I didn't even bother watching their prequel show because I'm like I just don't care. Rube was good. Rube, I will admit, was very, very good, and I loved the movie.
yeah,
So yeah,
Rube's a bit underrated. I don't hear that many people talk about Rube outside
I
of the
hear more people
movie.
shit on Rube. To be honest, like I don't know
Yeah, I
why.
know. Like that sucks because for me personally, like Jeed and Rube are like the best new generation. Well, unless
Same.
Z counts. If Z counts, then I might like Z more than Rube. But
Hmm.
or Zet. But like I don't know. See, I think with Rube, when it came out, Subaraya on their YouTube channel released the first episode. So then all the fan subbers were like, okay, are they going to release it all? And they didn't. So then fan
Okay.
subbers were like weeks behind because they're kind of like waiting for Subaraya at the time to be like, okay, like, so what's your plan? You give us the first episode for free with subtitles? Are you going to do more of that or no?
Mm,
And so then fan subbers had to catch. So I think it killed the hype.
right. Okay.
And like, because especially like English speaking Toku fans, it's super community based. I mean, our
Yes.
community is carried by these fan subbers. Like,
True.
if these fan subbers didn't exist, it would have
Yeah.
been dead.
If you miss the fan sub, I guess even like tape trading era of anime, that's where Toku is right now, pretty much. Because most of Toku is not available legally. You have to torrent. There's like no option. I
You
mean,
have
sorry,
to play.
I wouldn't say no option, but let's say most of the options are not available. Yeah.
It's gotten better again with Ultraman. You could practically watch everything, provided you either live in a region that has the DVDs for you, like available,
Or you
or
have
you have
Tubi.
Tubi. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Ultraman, you're pretty okay. But like Kamen Rider, definitely you need to torrent. There's only like a handful of shows you can watch legally, and then Sentai, like again, handful of shows you can watch legally. Everything else you got like torrent. Yeah. So yeah, so I don't have like a particular show that's like above the rest. I like look at each franchise. I have favorites within each franchise. So yeah, for Ultraman, it would have to be like yeah. If I had to pick a show, then like yeah, like it would have to be who probably G'd more than Rube, but Rube is a very close second. Zed, I'm watching right now. I still have to finish that, but like I mean, I am enjoying it. Not as good. I don't think it lived up to whatever it was hyped to be, but it's still an enjoyable show.
I mean
And then as far
that was my 2020 show. That show helped me. That show
yeah,
helped me.
maybe I'm because I'm watching it post 2020, so it doesn't like hit the
I
same.
mean, I still liked it. Maybe because I like my hot blooded kind of things, and like Zet was really like it. Zet is almost like a super robot show, but it happens to be Ultraman.
True, true. So with Super Sentai, it's a tie with two. Like some days I think one is better than the other. Other days I think like no, this is better than the other one. So it's Shinkenger and Deca Ranger. So Shinkenger is the samurai based episode. It's all about like Japanese culture, like traditional Japanese culture. And Deca Ranger is just a space cop show. That seems to be a theme with me. Whenever you have space and cops together, This is coming from a Green Lantern fan. I don't know. My brain like gets like dopamine immediately. Uh, so like yeah, like these shows had amazing characters. I was so in love with the cast. Probably my favorite, definitely my favorite Sentai teams. I was so into their arcs. And Shinkenger probably has the best sword fight scenes ever. Like they hype it up and they definitely live up to it. Like one of the things I like Super Sentai fights, but one my main problem is that it always is too short. Like they cut away too quickly. I get it. Like you've got 20 minutes per episode. You're on a conveyor belt. You got to get through story. But in Shinkenger they really gave time for the sword fights to read. You got a three-way fight between like Shinken Red and I think two monsters with swords. And then you had like a 1v1 fight between Shinken Red and Shinken Blue. And then you had a third one with like they were building up for the longest time between Shinken Red and another like monster with like a really long like Sephiroth length sword. uh, and it was awesome. And then yeah, Deco Ranger, really awesome gunfights, awesome characters, and I was like, it was like again, if you're looking for a Sentai that's also a police procedural, like this is a show up your alley. Although did start with Geki Ranger, which is like the martial arts Sentai, and I did enjoy that. Probably the best martial arts Sentai. People are going to tell you it's Dire Ranger, and they are wrong.
Oh yeah, so some people who've listened to the Punchcast long enough, I think we've briefly discussed it, but hopefully the recording goes well because I talked about it on Twitter once. But for some reason, when we have like a Toku centric podcast, the audio always gets corrupted for whatever reason. Like even Godzilla took a couple of tries. Like the Godzilla podcast took, we had to redo that one. So Hamza had a huge rant about like Die Ranger and I think even Ryuki.
Yeah.
Kamen Rider Ryuki. So those never really made it to the light of day. I think if Hamza gives Die Ranger another chance, he might like it slightly more. But Die Ranger will always have a soft spot in my heart because it was the first Sentai series I ever watched and completed. But even then, I'm still kind of curious as to why so many people think it's like one of the best Sentai ever. Because it's always there in like the top 5 Sentai lists or top 10 Sentai lists. Like Die Ranger's always there. And like I like Die Ranger, but I don't think I like it that much. Like for me, my favorite Sentai season is like Jetman from that era. Because like probably like Jetman. More recently, I've also really liked Dawn Brothers, which is funny because Dawn Brothers and Jetman share the same writer with Toshiki Inoue. You know, that man can't really write a story that well, but man, he can write characters.
Yeah, so like that was my problem. I started with Dire Ranger for the same reasons. I was like, oh, martial arts show. I will admit the fight scenes are pretty like good, but like I couldn't stand the characters. The martial arts and like I didn't really understand the motif against the villains because in Geki Ranger it's all martial arts. Like everyone's a martial artist. It's about like two schools. One school is evil, one school is good. Like it was like, and you know, each villain has its own like martial arts like style. Like you know, they fight like a grasshopper monster. He's using grasshopper style. I'm like, okay, like this I can like this makes sense. Like you're like fully diving into the martial arts like motif and theme. But like Die Ranger was like they're fighting like BDSM-esque like alien monsters from space and like that's it. So it's like why
I
are
don't think
even
they were from space for like I think they're from like another dimension, but like a lot of them are themed weird because like yeah, the main group is like BDSM themed, but then like the monsters of the week are like here's a karate birdcage man or here's a killer puppet creature.
Yeah, so it's like why are the main characters like you know, what do you call, like kung fu masters in the first place? And there's many other problems I had with it, but like, yeah, I'll save that for another time. But like, yeah, Dow Ranger is not as good as people say. That's a warning. And then with Kamen Rider, I started with like, yeah, Zio and Jay, but like, as far as shows go, I started with Build. I do want to rewatch Build, especially now since all the specials and movies have come out. I haven't seen those. and just because it was my first Kamen Rider, so I really just again took everything just you know at face value. I didn't, but like now that I'm more experienced with Kamen Rider, I would love to go back. But my favorite of in Kamen Rider shows, I would have to say is it's got to be Forze. Yeah, I love Forze. It was really really fun. I love the messaging in that, especially as someone who was. I watched that. I think I watched that during COVID, and it was like if someone needed a message about friendship at any time, it was definitely then when you're like locked up inside and can't meet anybody. So Forze was a great show. That show is all about friendship. Love the suits, love the characters, and like I really, really just missed that show, and I really want to rewatch it again. Like, and it probably is the best Kamen Rider like movie, probably if you think about it. Like the what do you call it? And it's also part of the trilogy, like the Double O's trilogy. So if I have to rank it, it would be Forze first. Then it's tough. Double and O's are really good, but I would have to say double then O's at least for now. But yeah, like that trilogy was like really really awesome to experience. And that was like my first exposure to Kamen Rider. And this is a theme with me. I don't like dark Kamen Rider. So there's like Kamen Rider Amazons. I hated it. I dropped it in season 2. I didn't like the more serious version in the recent show called Black Sun. That wasn't for me. And that was it called again? It wasn't. It's not Shin Kamen Rider. Is it Kamen Rider Shin or what was it like?
No, it was Shin Kamen Rider.
Then one was
There are two Shin Kamen Riders. You got like the original Shin Kamen Rider, which and then you got the new Hideaki Anno Shin Kamen Rider.
Rider. Yeah, right. Yeah, I didn't like either. I mean, the Hideaki Anno one is better, but I found it to have like a lot of problems. So yeah, like I like my Kamen Riders. Like I like my candies, bright and colorful. I guess. So yeah, so those are some of my favorite. I would say. Oh wait, we haven't talked about Gara yet.
Oh yeah, Garu is also really good.
Yeah.
Probably some of the most insane Toku action like,
Yes.
ever.
Yeah.
Like,
I've only seen like the first 2 seasons and like some movies here and there. But yeah, like if you're looking for like hands down, Garo has the best action. Like I can 100% say that as someone who's like very picky about action. Like I'm very impressed with the fight scenes. They go all out in Garo. Like I still think about like the Makai Knights fight between Gold and Silver like to this day. Like
yeah, it's
so well done. Yeah.
Like to put it into perspective, it's like if someone did live action like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta or some other character action game.
Yeah.
It's like that level of action but done live. It's not a video game. It's like these are actual people in costumes. Sometimes it's CG.
But like
which
whenever
then it just
CG,
feels like a video game.
well, yeah, but when the CG gets involved, it's always like I feel it's earned. Like it's always like some crazy thing that like, oh yeah, this would be either really expensive or impossible to do practically. But like like it's one of those like where they expect like if you're a person. Because there's some people like this I've noticed in Tokumi, they're like, oh my god, I love out of suit fights. I love seeing the actors actually like get physical. Garo's all about that. Like if you're a Garo actor, like a main character, like a main henshin character, like prepare to have a lot of out of suit fights.
Yeah, Garo is pretty fucking sweet when you get into the swing of it. There's like I still really like the 2 series I was talking about my favorites, but like some episodes of Garu are probably some of my favorite in Toku.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like there's this in like the second Garo series, there's just like it's like episode 7 and there's this gigantic fight in the sky. This fight is so fire. It feels like it should be like the climactic battle, but it's episode 7. Like, that's how good that fight is. It's like, is the show over? It's like, no, this is just episode 7. We're just gonna have like the sickest fight ever. I'm like, okay. And then like in the third mainline Garo series that follows the main character's son, there's some really good like one-off episodes. Like there's this one where he has to go against this monster that kind of takes him through a history of horror. So like, you know, he goes into a room and it's covered in zombies, and then he's going against like a chainsaw guy, and then it's like Friday the 13th and Scream and all that. It's like really cool. And then there's another creative episode where like the monsters themed is like manga. So he essentially has to fight like manga and like word balloons and all that. It's like, it's really creative.
I thought like he has to fight Junji Ito himself.
That could probably come up in the future. Unfortunately, Garo's like a bit up in the air since it's not backed by like a big studio like Tsuburaya or Bandai. We did get a recent Garo series this year. It was like 12 episodes that came on YouTube, but unfortunately it had AI subs. So that kind of detracted a bit, because not only do AI subs suck, sometimes they don't make sense, because you know, they'll be like, I gotta swing my knife, and they're holding a sword. I'm like, what do you mean knife? Like that happened a couple times where it'd be like, my knife, and it's like, sword?
Yeah, so like those are, I would say, some of my like some of our favorite like franchises or franchises and slash shows or movies within Toku. And as far as like where to start, I mean, Shane's made so many videos on those. Just watch one of those, you'll get like an idea of like where to start and where to go and what's good for you and what's not. Yeah,
exactly. Pretty much like every big franchise I've done a Tokusatsu introduction for. I've done Kamen Rider, Ultraman, Super Sentai, Metal Heroes. I do need to make one for Garo. Kamen Rider, I need to remake. There's a couple things I got wrong. And then in my recommendations, it was a lot of like Neo Heisei stuff. And then Metal Heroes, I should probably eventually remake too, but I need to watch more Metal Heroes. I think at the time I felt like I was pretty established with Metal Heroes when I was making that video originally, because I was like up to date with like the upcoming fan subs for shows, but then like a lot of those projects went on hiatuses. And really, still to this day, the only Metal Hero series I fully watched from beginning to end, I think, is also the shortest, which is Metalder, which is great. Metalder is a great show. But I really like, it still is mostly a blind spot. Like altogether, I've probably seen like maybe a little over 50 episodes of Metal Heroes, but it's all scattered and like for the most part like uncompleted. So I need to go back and then maybe make another video on that. But for the most part, yeah, with Tokusatsu, I've made plenty of videos of that. I do want to make more videos in the future, spotlighting a couple series, because I think outside of like movies and like franchise introductions, in terms of like other Toku videos, I think I've only talked about like Double and Metalder. Like Kamen Rider Double and Metalder are like the only like
you mean like singular
yeah, like singular.
Like you could easily, I mean, from our conversations alone, you could easily make videos about all of them, like 10-minute video length.
Yeah, exactly. I plan on doing that. It's just, again, I mostly talk about like comics and everything because it's easier to edit. Again, I'm a one-man thing. To go over like the Toku, I'm like, oh, I have to like torrent this 50-episode series, scan through this 50-episode series, and also most of the time when you torrent, it's an MKV file. I have to convert an MKV into something that I could put in Vegas, because Sony Vegas does not like MKV files, and it's a whole song and dance, and it becomes really annoying. Like, it's got to the point where I'm like, maybe I could just do like podcast thoughts on these series. That way I don't have to show footage. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that would be a good. Yeah, we could just dedicate like, I don't know. It'll be a shorter episode. I don't think we can get 2 hours into it, but like an hour on like Double. I mean, you already did a video on Double, but like, I don't know, Forze or Ryuki or Kuga when I finish it. Yeah.
Some of these, like, I need to like rewatch, because I was thinking it would be cool to do like a new generation's heroes kind of retrospective. I was going to do one on my channel. I was going to talk about all the new generation shows, or at least from like Ginga to Ultraman Z. But then Script was too long. For the most part, kind of on the negative side, which I don't like making overly negative videos anymore.
Mhm.
Because like I think until I got to Jeed, I'm like, could have been better. Could have been better. Could have been better. This is great. Could have been better. This is great. And then, like, so I'm like, I don't know about this.
Mhm.
Because like there are people that I know like X and Orb, and there's
Yeah,
elements I appreciate about both, but it didn't really connect with me on any
same.
levels
Like
compared to
I was
like
like, yeah, this is fine, but I don't like. Again, it's also it's like I have a little bit of a hard time with Ultraman because I'm more of a I want to build to something. So like yes, Kamen Rider and Super Sentai yes have Monster of the Week elements, but at least like they're all leading up to something. Like every Super Sentai season, there's one big bad guy we're all heading towards, and all the monsters are just like steps along that way. Same thing with Kamen Rider. One big bad guy, and the monsters of the week is just going to be a step by step process to get to that bad guy. Most of the time, there are filler episodes, definitely, but like. Yeah, but when they go over like a story-based episode, definitely progresses the story. Like, yeah, they're usually bangers. But Ultraman is very different. A lot of shows are just monster of the week, and we don't really get a final like boss character that they have to defeat until the end. It's very much like you're not going to get like a sequential like build up story. It's all about like what problem do we have this week that Ultraman needs to solve.
yeah, Ultraman,
Yeah,
because like
that's
Ultraman
why
did
I like
spin off
Jeed
from
and
Ultra
Rube.
Q. It's
Like that's why I like Jeed and Rube more than the rest because Jeed and Rube had that element of like we're building towards one particular villain, and so I really really enjoyed that. I was really able to invest in it. But like the others, like X, to an extent, Orb, and like definitely Ginga Gingas, it's like okay, we're not really building towards anything. We're just doing episode by episode stories. Yeah,
right, yeah. Ultraman, because especially since it originally was Ultra Q, it's more of like a sci-fi fantasy anthology series
yeah,
in that sense, and it's always
hmm
kind of stuck to that formula.
yeah,
So it's not as story based as like Kamen Rider can be, for example, or even well, Sentai, depending on the season. Um,
hmm
but yeah, so that with that we can move on to our final topic because I'm pretty sure if we keep on talking, we're just gonna get there eventually. But like our thoughts on the future of Tokusatsu, as Tokusatsu's made plenty of great strides within recent years. As we talked, we've had DVDs, we've had anime. At least in terms of Ultraman, there's comic. Actually, no, even Kamen Rider got a comic book. Kamen
Yeah,
Rider
Kamen
Zero
Rider did.
One got a
Yeah, yeah,
comic.
I read it. Yes, yes, it's fine. It's okay. It's not gonna blow anybody out of the water, but like, it's all right. But I like seeing. So as far as the future goes, I like seeing. Okay, so there's things that are happening right now, and there's things I want more of. So things that are happening right now, Toku is growing in popularity. Subaraya that owns Ultraman, they're definitely doing the best job out of everybody. They're putting their episodes on YouTube, fully subbed or fully dubbed, whichever one your preference are. They're like making new content, like they made an animated Netflix movie. All of their shows, their entire catalog is available in North America at least on like like a free streaming service like Tubi. There's no paywall, so they're really really going hard on the exposure angle. And then if you're a comic book fan, they're making collabs with Marvel. There's an Ultraman Avengers like crossover happening literally as we speak, as of this recording. Shaheen got the first issue, and then like speaking on comics, there's a lot of surprisingly quite a few Toku based comics. I mean, Shaheen did a whole video. You've got Radiant Black, the whole Massiverse. I would say in its entirety. You have like Ultra Mega, Jenny Zero. So there's quite a bit in the comic book realm as far as like Toku goes. It wouldn't surprise me if we get like a Kamen Rider esque series later on. And then like manga as well, we're getting quite a few. Like we have the Ultraman manga itself. We've got Go Go Loser Ranger. If you want a classic manga, the classic Kamen Rider manga and the classic Super Sentai manga is available. So like so like yes, Toku is getting more exposure, and it's like touching these other mediums to even give it even more exposure. So that's great. I do think that Toei, Garo, and I'm trying to think what other else. What's the Go Rangers? Who was that? Who made that? Do you remember?
Like Go Ranger, like
No,
that.
go. What is that? The one that got hyped. That was like a local like Toku show. I
Oh,
forgot the name.
Dogenger.
Dogengers. That's the one. I
Well, see,
just
that
hope.
one's a bit harder because that's like a
Yeah,
local
yeah.
superhero
That's
one.
a
Yeah,
that's a local.
that
But
one's like,
like, I hope they like see that there is a North American market, and they really do as much as Subaraya, at least as far as exposure goes. Like, put their catalog subbed or I mean probably they'll put subbed on either streaming services or YouTube or wherever, like just somewhere we can watch it legally and like actually give them whatever eyeballs or money to see it, or like you release it at even in DVD form, like like whatever, like just make more legal options because we're looking for that. Honestly, this is like the one community that's like ready to give money, but for some reason the company itself doesn't want it, which is weird. So yeah, like, I would love to see more of that. There's one thing that scares me though, and I want to get your thoughts on it. So we got Shin Kamen Rider from Hideaki Anno. We've got Shin Ultraman, uh, and I've seen this trend with modern, Sentai and Kamen Rider. I'm sure you've noticed it as well. That like we're using more and more CGI with every passing season than we're using practical. And it is a bit worrying to me that eventually we'll get to the point where, like, it started off as a medium that uses practical effects heavily to the point where, like, I don't think we're going to see enough practical anymore.
yeah. See, that's been a concern of mine too, because
Mm-hmm.
especially with like a lot of these theatrical releases, like I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Godzilla is just. I'm not sure if he's ever going to come back to a
Suit, yeah.
suit in
Mm-hmm.
mainstream movies anymore because Shin
Yeah.
Godzilla they made a suit for it, but it was too hard, so they eventually made it CG. Uh,
Yeah.
which honestly, my first viewing, I almost couldn't tell in certain scenes. But then -1 also CG. Um, there's a couple shorts where he's like in a suit, but for the most part, we've gone mostly CG
Mm-hmm.
Godzilla.
Yeah.
Um, Sentai for a time was kind of relying a lot on CG, either for the robot battles or, I mean, we had a whole season where it was in a fantasy world, so like the entire
Yeah.
background was just green screen,
Mm-hmm.
which luckily they didn't follow that the next season. Boom Boonger's a lot more down to earth compared to like uh King Oger. Yeah, King Oger. But it's like I kind of get why they're going to CG. I've seen a couple of YouTube channels, mainly Accent and Sima, who I gave a shout out earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know there's a period in time where Japan was kind of like not really that into their film scene. They're like, why can't our movies look like Hollywood movies? Like our movies kind
Mm-hmm.
of suck compared to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I feel like there's obviously a lot of creatives that kind of took that to heart. So they're trying to, get on that Hollywood level. And unfortunately, I think the mindset for some of that is get on that Hollywood level, fuck these suits, let's go CG.
CG.
And like, I think there's room for both because obviously we can't have it all be practical effects. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
That time is over. As much as I wish it wasn't, but I
Yeah, but
feel
like
like
it's
there
like
could be
kind
a
of it's a
healthy.
bit like sad to me because like for example with Sentai it's like very noticeable. Like with Sentai, the mech scenes, for example, if you watch like old 90s and 80s and like a bit of early 2000s, all the mech transformations are practical. They're actually using like models and toys and figures to like do the whole like, henshin sequence, like the whole transformation sequence. And when, someone gets hit, in order to show the impact, sparks fly out. Anybody who's seen Power Rangers knows what I'm talking about. Like, whenever someone gets hit, sparks fly. And with modern Sentai, and I'm pretty sure Kamen Rider as well, the sparks are clearly digital, like it's CG, like no one's actually like there's no like tiny bomb, I guess, tiny flare to make the sparks happen practically, and all the mech transformations are fully CG. There's not a hint of like, oh, this is like an actual like model like figure we're using until like the actual mech fight starts. At least that's still like suit level. But like it is noticeable, and it like hurts. Like, oh, I wish it was practical. I wish you were doing what you were doing before. I feel like we lose something by not like doing that continuously. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Like some Sentai seasons, like there's still like a physical like costume and everything for the robots. Some seasons like a random episode, I'm not sure if it's like a budget thing or something, they'll just do CG and it's like extremely noticeable. I'm looking at you, Zenkaiger. But see, like with the sparks and everything, like while I'll miss it being practical, I don't mind some of the flashier effects being, CG or whatever. That I don't mind as much, even though I do miss when Toei would just light people on fire. But obviously, for safety reasons, it's probably not the most brightest idea to do.
But I feel like because they've done it for so many years, like you got all the safety down.
Yeah, I mean, like Subaraya, at least, like maybe not so much in the movie, but still to this day, they're like masters at their craft. Like Ultraman Arc, which is the newest Ultraman, like every episode so far, there's been a sequence where I'm just like, this is what I want more from Tokusatsu. We got like CG and effects, but the monsters in Ultraman are still practical. There's a healthy balance between the two.
Yeah, maybe that healthy balance is what I'm looking for, but I'm really hoping the scales don't tip too much into the CGI realm to the point where practical effects are a thing of the past completely. Like, I do like the balance that Ultraman strikes. I feel like whenever they're using CG, it's used to enhance the like practical, make it stand out even more. Like, but in a good way. Like, I can't really explain it unless you've like seen what I'm talking about. But like, yeah, I think the Ultraman balance is what I hope that other, Toku productions go for. Yeah.
Right. Like, I still think Godzilla could still be a suit, but maybe on the face. Kind of, cause, like, if you look at, like Marvel or DC, a lot of the costumes are CG these days. Like, the cape is CG or the muscles are CG.
I don't like that.
A lot of CG, but I think you could kind of work that with Godzilla, where like the suit is mostly like an actual suit, but you could augment areas of the face to be CG, so it's a little bit more lifelike. Yeah, like the tail and the face, I think could be CG'd, like believably, and like I like have a practical set, but then also maybe use a little CG to like punch it up a bit. Because I feel like Heisei Ever Godzilla, there's some really good background work in there. Like some of them legit look like actual cities.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've mastered the work of miniatures, like both Toho and Subaraya. Like to the point where it's practically lifelike at times. So I feel like if you use CG to like just punch everything up, make it slightly more believable, and then like let CG kind of use it more of as a tool rather than just the whole project. I think that's where I would like for it to strive, but it's unfortunate because the mainstream audience, a lot of them don't really feel like that. When it comes to like practical effects or even animation as a whole, mainstream audience is always like, oh, why couldn't this be live action? Why couldn't it be like this? Or why don't you just use CGI? Even though we love ragging on practical effects not looking real and everything, but at the same time, in a way, practical effects are real.
True.
Whereas your CG in 5 years is not going to look as good. For the most part. Obviously, like there's elements of like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, like some scenes that still to this day look really good. But even in Sam Raimi Spider-Man, there's a healthy balance of CG and costume. It
True.
was a real costume. Tobey Maguire wasn't just CG'd, over. I'm pretty sure they had like a suit actor, but
Yeah.
There were actual suits. The whole Doc Ock scene in Spider-Man 2, that was
Yeah.
practical. So I know we're harping a lot about practical. It's an art form you don't want to see die.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. But well, to get on a more, I would say, maybe more positive note. So this applies mainly to the big three: Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, Ultraman, because these are the three oldest franchises. I mean, not counting Godzilla, like oldest, like I would say, TV show running franchises in Toku. And each one has their formula, and each one more or less sticks to those formulas. I would love them to see those formulas if they can't break it entirely and do something new, at least tweak it a lot, so you can get like different stuff. Like I would love to see maybe a Sentai season where there aren't any, or maybe a few mechs. Like that's just like a one change. I'm not saying I don't want mechs. I'm just saying like I'm just throwing out examples of like we've done this for the longest time. Maybe let's not do it and see what happens, and or like do something else. Or with Common Rider, like maybe harken back to some Showa stuff and maybe do more bicycle stuff because like I knew I had more bike stuff, so not bicycle bike stuff. Uh, because as Kamen Riders go on, the bike has become mostly irrelevant. It's just like I need this to get from one location to another. Like you said, what's the rider in Kamen Rider anymore? I would say change I would like to see. And this applies to the big three, like Super Sentai, Ultraman, and Kamen Rider, because those are like the oldest Toku franchises, not counting Godzilla, but Godzilla is more of like a movie franchise. These are like TV show franchises. I would. All three of them have their own respective formula that they've been doing for years and years, but I want to see them change things up. Like I know, like each show kind of does that anyway. Like not every Sentai show is like same as another one, or a Kamen Rider show or Ultraman show. But like I want to see that dial go up even more. Like do something like really really different. Like maybe have a Sentai season with no mechs or very few mechs, like not every episode. Again, I'm not saying I don't like mechs, I'm just putting that out there as an idea. Or like, in Common Rider, maybe involve like maybe go back to Shore era stuff or like early Heisei stuff and involve the bike more. Because like, Shaheen mentioned this to me and I do realize that now that what's the rider even in Common Rider anymore? Like the bike is kinda irrelevant. It, he just uses it to get from location to location, and that's all we pretty much see of it most of the time. So, like bring that back and like change things up a bit, and then same thing with Ultraman. Like, don't reuse kaiju. Maybe you know use all brand new kaiju, or like although I would say Ultraman does do innovative shop, and maybe like do more stories where you're building up to a villain rather than doing the episodic week to week type of thing. So like I really want to see these like franchises that have been around in the 60s and 70s really do like something like different and like really redefine what it is to be like a Sentai or a Kamen Rider show or an Ultraman show. Yeah. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, that's with Ultraman, with the newer kaiju, I felt like they changed that with like Blazer,
Mm-hmm.
last year's Ultraman series. For the most part, that was mostly all brand new kaiju. I think with Subaraya, it was just hard to make new kaiju because
Mm-hmm.
ever since Ginga, when they came back, they weren't doing that well financially, which is why like a lot
Yeah.
of Ultraman shows are like 25, 26 episodes long.
Yeah.
They still haven't like they were slowly financially recovering from all that, but like they really changed when they went in their hiatus before coming back with like the new generation heroes and everything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Sentai, it never made it because that audio got corrupted, and of course my bird's going crazy right now. But the audio got corrupted for it. But when we did a Tokusatsu hot take podcast, I did say for me one of my hot takes was kind of not the biggest fan of Sentai mech battles, so I could
Mm-hmm.
definitely do a whole season without them, or with them used very minimally. Just because it's like the mech battles are cool at first, but then after a while it becomes really formulaic until like
Yeah.
they introduce like a new weapon or attachment. Because
Yeah.
nowadays like Sentai mechs have like 20 different attachments because you know they got to sell the toy.
Yeah. And also, if
But
you've
yeah, after a
seen
while the
like
mechs
if you've
just
seen like Ultraman kaiju battles, Super Sentai does not come close with its like mech versus kaiju battles at all. Like it's like night and
yeah
day.
the
Because I mean,
miniatures are nowhere near as good.
yeah,
Yeah, it's yeah, like it kind of has the best of both worlds, but at the same time, at least like I feel like the on the ground ranger versus monster battles, those are always good, but the
Mhm.
mech battles hit and miss for me sometimes, so I could definitely do with that. The thing I really want, and I'm not sure if they'll ever change, but I really would wish Kamen Rider and Sentai would like slash their episode count. Maybe you
Oh,
don't
right,
need
that's
to
a
be
big one.
50
That's a
episodes.
great.
Maybe
That's a
be 35 episodes.
yeah. Because like this is something me and Shaheen have noticed that like most Kamen Rider Super Sentai seasons, they clearly only have story for like 30 to 35, give or take, an episode here or there. And there's a good 15 episode of just like either filler or we're stretching things out or like just stuff clearly that could easily be taken out, and it's just there because the system is that a Sentai combination has to last the whole year, when clearly the stories never warrant a year long season, like 50 episodes. So like yeah, if they could like really like realize that like hey, you know what, our writers consistently give us like 30-35 like banger episodes, let's just do 30-35 episode season and see what happens, so you can have like each episode is like tight and consistent and progresses the story forward, and we don't have any sort of filler stuff or the story doesn't get stretched super thin. Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, because there's been far too many Kamen Rider shows as of recently that like story and character wise are really good, and then like the summer hits, we don't get that many plot relevant episodes,
Yeah.
and then kind of ruins the whole flow, and then we have like a so-so ending, and then it's like, oh, come see the summer movie. I'm like, all right. After that, probably not. But um yeah, that's a big wish. I'm not sure if that will actually change, but things
Yeah.
I really want that I think could happen with the future of Tokusatsu, I definitely want, obviously more things to be released. I'm really hoping Toei starts looking at Tsuburaya and being like, huh, we could do the same thing. I mean, I know there's probably weird rights issues with Sentai, but there's plenty of Sentai that never got turned into a Power Ranger show. Same thing with Kamen Rider. There's plenty of like with Kamen Rider, like the only one they would have to worry about is like Black RX and Ryuki, and both of those have already been released. So it's kind of easy for the rest of Kamen Rider to come like abroad and get a DVD release or be put on a streaming service. So I really
Yeah.
wish for more of that, and then have more of a presence, because like Ultraman's been to Comic-Con. We had a stage show in Anime Expo last year, which is insane. So I would really like them to penetrate like the market more,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, Tokusatsu's for kids, and I'm telling you right now, the kids crave for Tokusatsu. Kids these days, they don't really have a Tokusatsu. Power Rangers is kind of up in the air right now, and that's all they have. There's no big bad Beetleborg. There's like, in the 90s, early 2000s, there was a couple other like Toku-like American shows. But these days, we don't even have like CW. I don't even think is making any new shows anymore.
I mean,
So,
CW, the
and then
network,
most of
I
the
think
other
the network
superhero
is
shows
dead.
are kind of
So, yeah.
yeah. Okay, so there's that, and then most of
Yeah.
the other superhero shows are like more adult tinged, so the kids
Yeah.
don't really have live action superheroes they could watch on the TV. They have to wait for whatever movie comes out.
Yeah.
So I think it's a perfect time to start introducing Tokusatsu. Again, Super A had the right idea. Do an English dub. Because when I was a 5-year-old, I'm not watching Japanese subtitles, but you put me in front of a dub? Okay. And it's on YouTube? Okay. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm the kids want the quarry. They want the special effects.
But they want the
want
quarry.
the
They don't know
superhero
it
that's
yet,
just
but they want
they
it.
crave the quarry. I don't even think the kids, everyone craves the quarry. Reject CG slop.
Yeah.
Embrace the quarry.
For those who don't know, so Toei, for their Kamen Rider Super Sentai seasons, usually share locations just to, like, save money, obviously. And there's this one place, it's called the Quarry. You'll know it when you see it. It's just like this mountainous green area where, like, whenever Sentai or Kamen Rider goes there, you're gonna get a banger action scene, because I think that it's like easy places to make so many like crazy action scenes happen. So, like, yeah, whenever the Quarry shows up, it's like, oh, all right, let's see what banger action scene they come up with now.
Yeah, there's going to be a sick explosion. There's going to be some
Yeah.
cool flips and kicks.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone needs that. When I die, bury my ashes in a quarry. But like, uh, we want and need all of that. I think we've grown enough as a society to be like, you know what? Maybe that's not so bad. Maybe it's not cheesy. It's fun. And also, what's wrong with cheese? Unless you're lactose intolerant. Like, cheese is good. A little cheese won't kill anyone.
All right, I have one more request.
So, okay.
This is very specific. Only, like, really, like, hardcore, I guess, like, Toku fans will understand. So, Toei, for mainly Kamen Rider, but, like, to an extent Sentai, do these, like, straight to DVD Blu-ray specials. They're called V-Cinemas. And because they're not on, like, network television where there's like censors and, like, executives that they're beholden to, like, make sure that, like, the programming is, like, meant for children and everything. The straight to DVD and Blu-ray ones, because there is none of that, they can pretty much do whatever they want. And Sentai Riders and I mean, I can't really say about Sentai Riders because I haven't really seen a lot of Sentai V cinemas. The ones I have seen, pretty, like, they're usually like anniversary specials, and they pretty much stick to, like, the tone of the Sentai. But something happens to Kamen Rider writers when there's a chance to do, like, a V cinema, because whatever skin they were wearing for, like, the network television comes off, and they're like, let's go full, like, dark and edgy. Like, some of the most miserable, unnecessarily, like, depressing edgelord characters die, decapitated. I don't know what. Like, I don't know what. I think whatever impulses, like, they were holding back when they were actually writing the show to air on, like, syndicated television. It's gone for the V cinemas, and they just unnecessarily just amp up the edge. And I'm like, you don't have to. You could just keep the same tone, just maybe slightly a bit more mature, maybe more innovative shots and action scenes, because you can do a lot more. But, like, that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking you for, like, full on, like, blood and guts. Like, I never asked for that. I don't know why you feel like you have to give me that in the V cinemas. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've seen some pretty crazy V cinemas. Very baffling. You really have to be a Toku fan to, like, see how you could have a really happy-go-lucky, fun Sentai season, and then the V cinema is like, here's organ harvesting Yakuza, and the Red Ranger's girlfriend is gonna have a lesbian romance with the evil general.
So yeah, like, but again, that's very, like, niche and specific. I just want to know, why is this happening? Like, I used to get, like, really, really excited for, like, these. I was like, oh my god, you don't have to worry about censorship or anything. You can just do whatever you want. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe you needed censorship. Yeah. So like
Yeah, as
those
much as I
are
want more gorier tokusatsu, I want original gorier tokusatsu. Like
yeah.
with Kira Major in that V cinema, I'm like, I refuse to believe the Red Ranger of that series lives in the same world as this V cinema.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve it. That boy's too pure. Take him out of that world.
Yeah. Speaking of like original like stuff, I would love to see more North American toku. Like we had this movie, Psycho Gorman, which is like
Hell yeah,
very
brother.
very like toku inspired, and that's what the like filmmakers were going for, and it shows like so much practical effects that's like clearly on a budget, but like again they're using every single penny of that to perfection. And I would love to see more original toku that's like outside of Japan, like from other countries. I know there are, but like from North America, like specifically for like English speaking like audiences. So like something like Psycho Gorman. The future of Power Rangers, as of this recording, is up in the air. We don't know what's going to happen. If it's going to go on hiatus, going to go to another studio, make something original, go towards animation. We have no idea right now. So like I'm hoping that like Power Rangers stops becoming like a Sentai remix and we get something wholly original. Be it animation or live action. I just want to see like what can we do? Like what toku can we make? Like what does American toku look like? That's what I want to see. Yeah.
Because we definitely have, a history of great, practical effects, especially with superheroes.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we can't recapture that, and we're just so like just CG it, put it in
Mm.
that I forgot what they call it, that big green screen room that Disney's obsessed with these days.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that one. If they used to love the Mandalorian, the volume, I think that's
Yeah,
the
whatever that thing
yeah,
is called,
yeah,
like I'll admit it's pretty cool, but we become too reliant on it. And I'm like,
yeah.
just give me a real set with a real costume and a real cape. Like, I don't
Yeah.
even care about the muscles that much, man. Just
Mhm.
like give me a real fucking costume.
Yeah, yeah. So that's something I would love to see more, like more North American, like more original toku that doesn't rely on like a previous franchise. Or who knows, maybe it becomes a new franchise, you know? Everyone's looking for a new franchise, so yeah, there you go.
Yeah, new franchise. I mean, I don't know, because I feel like there's been a lot of rumors regarding this particular IP for a while, but there's like rumors of like a Ninja Turtle Last Ronin movie, and people are speculating it's going to be live action.
Oh, so
And
are
if
they going to use like Jim Henson esque suits like the '90s movie?
that's the dream, but like, is that even possible anymore?
Yeah. Oh my god! I just realized like that's the closest thing, other than Psycho Gorman, the closest thing to Toku you have is the '90s like Team and Team
I mean, there's
movies.
like that, the Guyver movies.
Oh, the Guyver movies, right? I forgot about those. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yeah,
those are just straight up Toku. I mean,
yeah,
again, technically, things like RoboCop and Star Wars and most superhero movies are all Toku
yeah.
in the
But I'm
sense
talking
that
like,
special offense
yeah, but like,
filmmaking.
by that logic, Doctor Who is like British Toku, which
It
I'm like,
is.
yeah, I know, but like, I'm talking Toku, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, no, I understand that. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really do wish we had, more of that, because
Mhm.
during like the 90s, early 2000s, we had like original American Toku. There was like the tattooed luchadors, or I forgot what they're called,
Hmm.
tattooed teenage alien fighters or something. There was like that. There was like a
Oh,
luchador one.
would you count Buffy as Toku?
I haven't really seen Buffy, so I'm not sure. But like
Hmm.
these shows I'm talking about, like they're essentially like, oh, I saw like they saw Power Rangers and Beetleborgs and all that, and like
Hmm.
Superhuman Samurai Squad. And they're like, let's do that, but let's not pay a Japanese company for footage. Let's
Footage,
just do it
yeah.
ourselves. Because there's another one I think it was called like Mystic Knights of Tirnog or something like that, which I actually heard was good, and it's like night
Oh,
themed, and the costumes actually look good on that one. But like,
ah,
you know, we need more stuff like that.
yeah.
Especially since a lot of streaming services seem to be pretty animation these days, which that's a whole different podcast. And again, David Zaslav, I see you on the streets, man. It's for legal reasons, this is a joke, but at the same time,
Yeah, there
pray
are
you don't see
rumors
me.
that because so House of the Dragon season 1 was 10 episodes, House of the Dragon season 2 was 8, and apparently there are rumors it was 8 episodes because Zaslav cut the budget, and there was a lot of things that the House of the Dragon writers wanted to do, but again, because they cut the budget, they're like, oh, we can't, so we're just gonna have to hope that we can do this in season 3. So it's not just animation, it's other things are getting affected too.
Yeah, but he seems more anti-animation too, because they have first of all,
it seems like he has a vendetta against animation.
Yeah, because Cape Crusader, a new Batman cartoon. Max is supposed to be the home of DC, but with the Cape Crusader and Merry Little Batman, he's like, not on our streaming service. Put that on Prime. I'm like, what? And then Gendy Tartakovsky, creator of Samurai Jack and Dexter's Laboratory and Primal, which is probably one of the best modern adult animated series out there. He had a movie that was supposed to be coming out for Max. And now they're like, we don't want to do it anymore. So the rights went back to Sony, and Sony has to figure out someone else to stream the movie. And I'm just like, David Zaslav, man, I see you. So, but yeah, so since they're so anti-animation, they might as well make a live action show for kids. That's not a teenage comedy with a weird producer behind the scenes that's doing things with children he probably shouldn't be doing.
For those who want to understand this restaurant, go watch the Quiet on Set documentary.
I only saw tidbits of that just because a lot of those shows were my childhood, and I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
And some of that stuff in retrospective, I'm like, oh my god, it was right there.
There's another documentary coming but this time Demi Lovato is the host, and it's about the Disney Channel child stars and what they had to go through. She said no one's going to get blamed. It's not going to be like the Quiet on Set where you start pointing fingers at abusers, but it's just about the difficulties of growing up as a child star. Yeah.
Yeah, see that's one thing where I'm just like, maybe don't put children in the spotlight. I understand for certain things you kind of need them, but I'm like, maybe don't. It's not a safe environment for them. No kid deserves that. Go watch Ultraman on YouTube. But so we'll just wrap it up here before we start going in circles. But Tokusatsu's great. If you've made it this far in the podcast and you haven't watched Tokusatsu, go ahead and watch it. Like we both mentioned, I have plenty of introduction videos on some of the main franchises, so you could go ahead and watch those and kind of get a good idea of where to start. But
pretty sure I have a playlist, right?
Yeah, I have a playlist for every Toku video I've ever made, so you can check those out, get a good feeling for Tokusatsu. Of course, just watch it. Literally, just Google Tokusatsu, and then just look at what seems cool, and just watch it. If there's a suit you really vibe with, or you like the summary, or something like that, go ahead and watch it. Most Tokusatsu is kind of made with the intent of it being your first in the franchise. So, for the most part, you're pretty good at just jumping in anywhere, unless it's explicitly a sequel season. But those are pretty rare unless it's Garo, whereas Garo you kind of gotta watch in watch order. But for the most part, just any Kamen Rider you could pick up, any Sentai you could pick up, any Ultraman you could pick up for the most part. Just go ahead, go crazy.
I mean, remember, these are designed for children that they know that eventually age out of this stuff. So they're constantly looking for new kids to get into it. So if they kept everything as a sequel to something else, it would be very annoying because new kids wouldn't be able to enter. So they gotta keep it fresh and new viewer friendly, so that once the I don't know, 8-year-olds become 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds and they don't want to watch anymore, they need a new batch of like 8 to 10-year-olds to come in. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, like
Yeah.
Sentai has been going on almost nonstop for like 40 plus years. So
Yeah.
they're clearly
Yeah.
doing something right.
Yeah. And then the ones they value the most are the ones that never stop watching.
Yeah, of course. You know, the ones that are like the reasons for why we're getting these like 10-year, 20-year after specials.
The specials, yeah.
Man, I'm going to like feel really like it's going to do some psychic damage to me where like
You're a major 10-year anniversary special.
yeah, or like Q Ranger cuz like Q Ranger I don't have that strong emotions for, but it was the first ongoing Sentai I watched. Like I watched that series week to week, and once that gets a 10-year anniversary thing, I'm going to be like, "Oh fuck." Like I'm old.
Oh, you're gonna get so many nostalgic tingles. It's like,
It's like, oh,
I
here's
remember when
Lucky.
this was a weekly show. Yes, I remember that flashback scene. I watched that 10 years ago. Oh my god.
Oh my god, 10 years. Yeah, but
I mean, what will happen when it's like 20-year anniversary, 30-year anniversary? If assuming that like Sentai keeps living that long. Yeah.
I mean, that I guess we'll have to wait and see because I feel like these anniversary things. I mean, we've had anniversary seasons, but these like particular season anniversary specials,
Yeah.
those I feel like are a bit newer.
Mm-hmm.
So like we'll see how a 30-year one would look like if that's even possible. Because the thing is with Tokusatsu, a lot of these actors they go on to become more popular once they leave, so a lot of them don't really come back. So it's a bit harder in some
That's
cases.
the main problem with these specials is that like, can we get all the actors to come back? That's the main thing. Yeah.
You know, same way for like a lot of these sitcoms, like a lot of the actors in these sitcoms that go up and
Mm-hmm.
you know do other projects, and then like years later when they want to do like the
Reunion.
the reunion special or whatever, it's kind of hard to wrangle everyone. It's like, well, this one became a drug addict, and this one's you know, a twice Oscar winning actor, and then this one's a music producer now for some reason, and yeah, it's kind of hard to get all those people back in line.
Yeah.
But we'll leave it off here. As always, Falcon Punchers, keep on punching, watch Tokusatsu, love humanity, be quite kind to one another, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.